Now, this is always a difficult video to make because today I'm going to be talking about 5 ways to conclude that the alcoholic in your life or the loved one in your life is a lost cause, and it's time to conclude that you need to move on, or you need to compartmentalize that relationship into either no contact or limited contact. Always easier said than done, because some relationships could be parents, could be kids, and it's not easy to just walk away completely. You always want to be there and understand what the person's going through, but there is a tipping scale, okay? And there is a point when you realize you don't know if they're ever going to come out of this, and you need to protect yourself as just as a fellow human being. And it's really important to understand this. Never give up on somebody. That's not what we're talking about, but you do need to protect yourself as a family member. And this video really is all about the family members. And really, some of the obvious indications are if they've become a danger to themselves and to everyone around themselves. They continue to drink and they get behind the wheel of a car. They're putting themselves in harm's way and everybody on the road in harm's way. Innocent people, men, women, children in harm's way. And they continue to drink. Maybe they have warrants. Maybe, like in my wife's case, she would get the keys sometimes. She'd have to steal them because she'd have to find them because I would hide them. She'd find them. And we're talking about a woman who's driving around with a revoked license, uninsured. I wouldn't insure her car. Unlicensed. I wouldn't license her car, with a breathalyzer to start the ignition, certainly in the later years. And she had warrants out for her because she hadn't completed a lot of her outpatient and AA requirements from the court. So if she got pulled over, she was gone, and she would, get behind the wheel of a car. Maybe she was only going a few miles to go get alcohol, but the point is that she was still driving. And when you get to that point, when someone is in that much, putting themselves and other people in danger, you really need to reevaluate what you're doing there. Or you have to make a big change. In my wife's case, I ended up just taking out the battery of the car, and I had 2 other cars. Those keys were like in a vault. These are the extensiveness that I had to go through. I chose to stay in the relationship because that was the most viable at the time. Every situation is completely different. Don't compare yourself to what I did, but just be aware of what the alcoholic in your life is putting you through. Another pretty obvious indication is if they have gone to rehab facilities, they've been to detox, they've been to rehab, and it just seems like they're placating the situation. They're not there for all the right reasons. Maybe, and they go to the rehab, they come home, and they don't go to their follow-up care, which is group therapy, AA, or Smart Recovery, or Women for Sobriety, or some local organization. And they don't continue that. They're not having group counseling or individual counseling, and they just go back to drinking, even though you spent all this time and money and effort going to a rehab. This is an indication that it's not working, because they're not working it. They're not taking it seriously. They're not 100% focused on their recovery. In my case, my wife went to 7 rehabs. She completed 6. She actually fell down a flight of stairs in her 7th, which ultimately caused her demise. But if they're starting to go to so many rehabs, it just seems like they're just going through a process. It's time to reevaluate what you're doing in that person's life. And one thing I want you to understand is having a relationship with someone who's a severe alcoholic or late-stage alcoholic, this is not a sustainable relationship. This is not someone that you can stay with together for any amount of time, because it's only a one-way street. You have to realize the alcohol has become their only relationship. Children, spouses, parents, any other relationship comes secondary, if it comes at all. And unfortunately, eventually, and you'll understand this if you've been around a late-stage alcoholic, that the alcohol becomes more important than their own health and their own person. It's a singleness of purpose, and this is why it is, and that's why it's called alcohol use disorder. It's a serious mental illness. There is no rationale behind it, and staying around trying to make someone better is going to be a losing situation unless that person is willing to get help and genuinely seek help. It's not something that's going to be sustainable. You're not going to fix that person. This may seem cold. It's a reality. It's a reality. Another really important factor is if you're in the gaslighting, denial, deflection stage, they take no culpability or accountability for their actions. maybe they do something outrageous and they don't even want to talk about it. Like my wife drove through the front of our house, or finishing out my dad's liquor cabinet while my mother was dying in the hospital. All these types of things. Going to a hotel room and smashing the toilet, falling down and flooding out the hotel room, and not even remembering the next day, and never even taking ownership or even willing to talk about it. Because if you talked about it, it's like you're harassing them. These types of things, which are just outrageous, are impossible for a sustainable relationship, any healthy, sustainable relationship. Eventually you're just ending up staying just to see if the person doesn't kill themselves, and that's no reason to stick around. Every relationship, again, is different, and you have to make your decision based on some of the things I've told you today, and I really hope they make sense. It's a tough decision. It's never easy, but you need to worry about your own mental health care as well. This is about your own mental health care as a family member to an alcoholic. Ultimately, you have to make yourself the priority. You have to make yourself, your children, a priority if that's the situation. Even as a parent, eventually you have to make yourself a priority, because you do not want to go down with the ship, and there's no point in two people succumbing to a disease when only one of them is actually the alcoholic, if that makes sense. And again, I want to go over the memoirs called Amanda, A Cautionary Tale of Alcoholism. It's the story of my wife's 25-year struggle with the disease, and ultimately she did succumb almost 5 years ago this February. Again, I go live Monday through Friday right around 6 o'clock Pacific Standard Time, 9 o'clock Eastern. We have the Facebook group. It's called There's an Alcoholic in the Family, and another one called Amanda, A Cautionary Tale of Alcoholism. They can be found on Facebook and also in the link tree. And when you're ready to work with me one-on-one, I have a complete coaching program. It's called Set Up a Breakthrough Call. It takes about 45 minutes. We do a deep dive into what's going on with you and your family. Make sure the alcoholic's there. If you set up a meeting, make sure that you're there. The call is free, but we're going to go over a course. That's the point of the program. And the course is definitely not free, but I'm looking for people who want to change their lives and the lives of their family. And again, thanks so much for listening.